What is going on, Governor Chisgule here, and today we're going to be talking about a brand new way to deal with trolls in your kingdom, and that answer is coming right over here. Oh my goodness, did we actually make a suggestion that in less than a week, Lilith turned around and turned into something in-game? I don't know if we influenced or not, probably not, but this is going to be really fun to talk about how you deal with trolls in Rise of Kingdoms, and now we've got one more tool at our disposal. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We're also a sponsored content creator. As you may recall, in the previous video, we talked about how one or two high-powered individuals that teleport around can cause a lot of damage to a kingdom. And usually it's the innocent players that suffer the most. It's the Mightiest Governor event, and, these toxic individuals in your kingdom. Not that they're toxic as humans. That's a separate evaluation. I'm talking their way they're playing is toxic to the kingdom. This person is teleporting around. They zero a city, teleport somewhere else, zero a city. If they're high power, you can't swarm them down because they're just going to let their hospital fill, and then they can just teleport whenever they want and heal up. And you can't rally them because it takes too long, and if they teleport away, the rally breaks up. So there's really, literally nothing at all that you can do to actually harm the account of a player who is at all competent and toxic. And that's a problem. That's a problem because one individual can purposefully harm the experience of an entire kingdom. So to that end, they're adding new skills into the game that start to help with this, and we need to talk about exactly how those work. Great news. The Facebook patch notes have just arrived. Let's pull those up on the screen. All right, here we are looking at the new Honor the King patch, which is coming really soon, remarkably soon. So soon that although I would love to claim victory in my recent video where we talked about how there needs to be a way to deal with toxic players, we brainstormed some awesome solutions, including, by the way, the thing that they're actually doing over here. And the fact that we shared that with them, that is highly unlikely that in like the 1 week that we said, hey, you should do this, they turned around, they did it, and they would have included it in a patch download. There's no way. So we just happen to be on the same wavelength, I think, as the developers, that they recognized as well, like, hey, we need to come up with a way to deal with these trolls. This skill system for the king is how we're going to do that, which I think is really interesting. So we just happen to be thinking about the same thing at the same time. And here is what these new king skills are going to do. We're going to start with the one that deals with trolls, but the other ones we need to talk about too. The first one I want to talk about is Imprison. Now, the question I had about Imprison is how long it's going to hold a city in place. It makes it so that the targeted city cannot teleport for 30 minutes. Now, this is pretty good. This is pretty good, and here's why. If someone is being toxic, what the king can do is they can see, aha, they have War Frenzy, so for 15 minutes they can't use a Peace Shield. The king then immediately uses Imprison, locking the target in place. Your rally leaders teleport over, and then they launch rallies. That means you have about 14 and a half minutes of time from when the rally is set to when that player can Peace Shield if they're paying attention to the fact that they've been locked in place. This is very good. That means you'll have about 10 minutes of rallying before that player can just teleport away again. So you have 10 minutes to try to rally them down and cause the most amount of damage possible, and they will definitely take some deads. It's possible you could get multiple waves of rallies if you really shred the heck out of their city, but that does seem fairly unlikely to me. Although, card up in the top where we were zeroing King Talib, and he came online and popped a Peace Shield, it would not have taken much longer for us to have zeroed him out. If, in this case, he would have been blocked from Peace Shielding. So I think that Imprison is a good step. I think it's a good step because it's not really interfering with people's ability to protect themselves. Like, they can still Peace Shield. And if they weren't being deviant, then, like, they probably don't have War Frenzy. I will say, however, I am a little concerned with the way this is being implemented for players who are just fighting in a kingdom war. If you're fighting for your own kingdom and who's going to be the king of the kingdom, This is pretty savage. And I guess original kingdoms are pretty savage in general. Like, there's no, like, you can always get rallied on your own territory. There's no protections whatsoever. So I don't think this negatively impacts a sort of revolution within a kingdom. I feel like, that's more or less the same as it would have been. And depending on what the cooldown is of this ability, then it should be fine. The king would have an opportunity to zero somebody potentially, but maybe not even. It might not even be enough time to kind of get that together or be meaningfully different from how a regular Kingdom War would work anyways. Now, we saw in these patch notes, by the way, that you can use Imprison on other kingdoms potentially, which is kind of nuts. So in Kingdom versus Kingdom, there's some major implications for how fights are going to go. I certainly think that as a content creator, I have a more than average chance that I would get focused down if I ever leave Alliance territory. But as long as I can just use a peace shield in that 15-minute window, and I stop attacking things so that my war frenzy falls off, I should be good to go. I should be good to go, but it's still a little bit more terrifying, and I think that's kind of a fun element of Kingdom versus Kingdom, that you could, theoretically, in a 4v4 KVK, have the four kings chaining the prison on a single player and cause a lot of damage to them if they are trying to fight at the same time. I don't know, could be nuts. Let's talk about the next skill here, which is tax. Tax is making it so that the kingdom gets 25% more resource gathering speed for 8 hours. That's amazing. That is phenomenal. The downside of that is that the king, downside, gets 1% of those resources gathered as a tax. Although it's not clear to me if that actually taxes all the players or if the king is just getting resources. I honestly do not feel like it's a bad thing that the king gets some resources. I mean, let's be real. The king is gemming buffs for your kingdom, right? Assuming they are gemming buffs for your kingdom. If they're not, then like overthrow them because you got the wrong king. But like we do daily kingdom buffs, okay? Daily kingdom buffs. And that's a lot of gems. Okay? That's like on average probably 1,500 gems a day. So just think about what the king is paying. For them to get a small amount of resources, it looks like this is 10 million of each resource, is not such a big deal. If it was 100 million of each resource, depending on the frequency, that would be much more meaningful. 40 billion resources is nice. The thing that we talked about in our live stream yesterday, card up in the top, Negan, who is the king of the kingdom I'm in, was saying, like, I don't need the resources. If it's a meaningful amount of resources, like, we could have the kingdom's bank go and activate the buff. And that way, we start to build up the amount of resources that live on our kingdom bank, which is kind of a nice idea. I know some kingdoms actually tax their members resources every week, so to stay in the kingdom, you gotta like give 10 million of each resource or something, or you get zeroed. I've seen some weird stuff, but we don't have a kingdom tax like other kingdoms do. We have more of like occasional contests and those sorts of activities that, it's mostly optional donation to the Kingdom Bank, which means we also don't have as much to give out at wartime. So everybody's expected to kind of manage their own funds and resources during a war. But this seems like a potentially nice way to grow a kingdom bank that holds a lot of resources and then distributes them in a way that makes sense during a time of war. This is an area that could be really contentious. I know at one point our bank was accused of giving more resources to a single player in a war than they've given over the lifetime of the bank. And like, look, you can just go in and look at the resource donated, right? So like people spread lies. It's probably going to happen. What I'll say of a bank, however, is even if you have a public ledger of where the resources are going and how that's fair, just make sure your bank has high enough power that it can't get just easily swarmed down by some rogue member of your kingdom. That didn't happen in our kingdom. Our bank is about 60 million power, so that'd be a pretty expensive operation, and it's got legit commanders on the wall. I think expertise Esong is there, maybe an expertise Charles Martel as well. But the point here is that make sure it can be protected so that one bad actor doesn't just roll up to your 1 million power bank and steal billions of resources. Seems bad. The other skill I want to talk about here is leader. Units of the kingdom within a certain range of the king's troops will gain a control effect. All damage is increased by 3%. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool, and that's how it should be, you know? You rally around the king. That's really awesome. There's a lot of emphasis here to having a king that's online, fighting and in the action, and even more emphasis toward rotating the king among your folks that are fighters. King rotation is a scary thing, though, in some ways, because, like, you have no recourse if the person you hand it off to doesn't give it back. Literally none. They could destroy the alliance. So careful how you hand out R5 titles in your kingdom, especially when you're floating them around with who is going to be the king. It becomes even more damaging what that individual could do now that they've got some of this stuff at their disposal. But I think there's also some nice ways to deal with trolls. So it looks like, and we'll cover briefly here, the other updates. There's going to be a newspaper, which I think is a neat idea. I've played other games where they've got stuff like this. I'll be eager to see how this plays out. It sounds like a massive amount of work to have articles that show up in here, but you know what? We'll see. We'll see how that evolves. The Soroli crisis is changing. You're going to see health. You're going to see threat. You're going to be able to compete in a leaderboard for who's got the fastest time, which I think is cool. And maybe they'll reward it, which I think would also be cool. So I think that it's nice to see that they are improving Soroli Crisis and Ian's Ballads on an ongoing basis. I think the quality of life stuff is really nice, although Fort Finder is my number one quality of life improvement. Slam dunk. Optimize the Peerless Scholar system, including a prize adjustment. I think it is interesting that they're bringing back the quiz game. I thought the quiz game was fine, but I don't know. It's just fine. They basically took, like, what a lot of other apps do as, like, the only thing they do and made it a part of this game. I enjoyed the quizzes. I also like that in the Lost Kingdom, you can look up the honor points earned by individual alliance members. That will be really cool to see. How much has any individual player contributed towards their alliance's honor? I like that a lot. Interestingly, it looks like they're going to be making it so that Past Glory moves really quickly. Every 3 days, if you don't complete the reconstruction of your Crusader fort, the phase is going to get advanced for you. I think that is really solid. Kingdoms that couldn't finish their Crusader fort just get wrecked, and they're still probably going to get wrecked, but at least they get the Crusader fort rewards. I think this is a good thing. It's a reminder that there are a lot of kingdoms out there that don't have as many players, and when, look, it might feel like a cool idea to be like, oh, we're gonna, attack everybody in the first, 90 days of the game. Like, bad news for you. You may have killed your kingdom accidentally, and now you can't even complete the Crusader Fort in KVK. And yeah, there are kingdoms where that legit happens. One or two toxic high spenders, it's like, oh, look at me, I'm king of the world. And it's like, actually, you're king of nothing. Who knew being nice would go a long way? Speaking of being nice, if you're looking for a nice place to hang out, a kingdom that's pretty legit, consider joining Kingdom 75. I'll have a link to our recruiting Discord in the description. We're open to players under 35 million power. So, look, that covers, I think, the major things in this patch note, and the video today was really about this over here. Can we now stop a troll? I think this is probably the least amount of stuff they could have given us that might be enough to nudge the problem in the right direction. But I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, like, if I'm rallying someone who's 175 million power, not like we've done that recently. Pretty sure we put that card up in the top recently, but I'll have a card for another time a high power player was getting rallied, if I've done that already. The thing is that after the 15 minutes, they'll pop a peace shield. They might even go into frenzy again and say, come at me again. Right? They might lose 1 million T5s and be like, whatever, 10 million power that I lost, but you all lost way more power, and then they just heal their hospital. I don't know. I think in regular Kingdom, the hospital issue is is rather more of a concern, because you've only got like 300 plus thousand hospital capacity. I think it's like 370,000 hospital capacity, maybe less. And that's if your hospitals are maxed. So you're going to have a lot of troops die. But if you're in a KVK context and your hospital capacity is doubled, you're not going to have a lot of troops die. Your hospital might fill up, and that might just be it. So I don't know if this is actually enough to get the job done. I suppose we'll find out. Leave a comment down below with what you think. Is this enough to deal with trolls, or is it not? Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.